Hello, good morning, and welcome to episode 152 of the Nintendo Fun Club podcast. This is a podcast about Nintendo and about fun. I'm Ryan, and joining me once again is John.
Good morning, Ryan. Happy Friday the 13th weekend.
Yes, it is definitely a weekend, and we have some very spoopy content this episode.
Mm.
Not really, but like one thing, kind
One
of.
thing is,
I guess, yeah, it works.
speaking of spooky content, though, like considering you and I, and of course our friend Jeremy, and some of the people we know, but like considering we're like real big time believers in the Friday the 13th NES game, it's weird that we didn't play it. I didn't play it yesterday, and I don't think you did either. Which
I did not.
have done, but too much stuff going on. But that would have been the way to do it. Of course, I don't know. I view it like it's really like this whole weekend is Friday the 13th. So maybe I'll whip it out at some point this weekend and play it for a bit.
Yeah.
I know you've played it recently because you just posted some footage of it.
I played it like last month, and I feel like any time is a good time to play Friday the 13th on the NES. That game rocks. I love it. Cool. So yeah, we have a bunch of stuff that rocks to talk about this episode. We have some games, a little bit of news, but mostly stuff we've been like playing and reading and watching, and lots of just fun Nintendo related stuff, including we have our SNES Classic Minis. So we'll be talking about those as well. But first I wanted to talk about the Nintendo World Championships 2017. Lindsay and I watched the show in its entirety, which turned out to be 4.5 hours, which I was not expecting it to be that long, but I thought it was absolutely awesome. Did you get a chance to see any of it, John?
Yeah, I watched a lot of it. It was a busy day that day around the house, tons of stuff going on. And so basically what I did is I had it streaming on my iPad, and I just kind of brought my iPad with me from room to room, So I wasn't able to like sit down and give it my full attention, but I did watch. I would say I probably watched a good 60-70% of it. I missed like the first 15 minutes or something, which was a bummer. And then I missed the last, I don't know, half an hour or something, maybe more. I don't know. But yeah, I missed the beginning and the end, which I think were two of the highlights. But yeah, I watched a lot of it. I thought it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, totally. Like I was super impressed by like the presentation and flow of it. I don't know. I guess I wasn't I knew it was going to be good and it was going to be fun, but I don't know. They really nailed like the live event part of it, because there's always that there's always the risk with the live Nintendo events that there's going to be some awkwardness here and there. But I feel like this was it's different, but it felt kind of in line with like a Treehouse Live, where like the commentators just kept things entertaining, and like it was like always something new, and like they didn't linger on any one thing for too long. And it just had a really good flow, and it looks super nice. The stream was like really good the whole time. I never had any problems with like the stream messing up or anything. And just the camera work was great, and cameras were on people when they needed to be on people, and on games when they needed to be on games, and the sound was where it was supposed to be the whole time. And like this sounds like pretty basic stuff, but as someone who watches E3 every year, like I see this stuff get messed up every single time by like these like multi-billion-dollar companies like every year. And so I was really impressed overall, and it was just super entertaining. Like, I mean, I was just sitting there with my Switch playing Stardew Valley pretty much the whole time, and watching, and it was great. I think some of the highlights for me were, and it's a bummer you missed the beginning, because the Breath of the Wild shield surfing competition.
I saw that. I saw that.
Oh, great.
I just didn't see like the song in the beginning and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Well,
Wasn't there
yeah.
like a musical introduction?
Yeah, there was a Punch Out themed introduction. Like it started with like the 8-bit like training between belts montage of Mac and Doc you know, go running through New York and Doc on the bike, and then it like went into like full like a full symphonic version of that, and it was pretty amazing. Um,
Cool.
but yeah, okay, so you got to see shield surfing, which was just, I think, an awesome, weird way to start
Yeah.
the event and super surprising.
Yeah.
Some of the other like game highlights for me were Bird and Beans, which is a game I was not super familiar with, and it was originally in WarioWare, and then it was ported to like a more, I think, expanded version was ported to DSiWare, and I totally must have played it in WarioWare because I on GBA because I played that game so much. I just don't remember it, I guess, in that context. So I did buy the DSiWare version, which you can still get on the 3DS eShop. So I'm excited to dig into that at some point. But that was like a cool surprise, and it's actually like pretty intense. Um, Super Mario Brothers Deluxe. I had no idea there was a very competitive multiplayer mode in that game. Were you familiar with this mode at all?
No, and I don't know if I saw this part or not. So what remind me because the naming conventions are complicated here. Oh no, this is not Super Mario Brothers Advance. It's which one is
No.
Deluxe?
Deluxe is the Game Boy Color remake of Super Mario Brothers and the Lost Levels.
Okay, okay. No, I barely know this game exists actually, to be honest. So I was
Okay.
not aware of the competitive scene surrounding it. So explain this to me. Like, how does this like multiplayer competitive thing work?
Okay, so it's a like one-on-one battle, and basically you are it's like these variations on like original SMB stages, and basically you can there's blocks you can hit on the way, and the blocks change something. Like um they'll make a wall appear or disappear, or they'll make yeah, I mean, basically they make blocks appear or disappear, but those blocks might be like over a pit of spikes. The blocks might be blocking your way forward. And so it's just it's a race to get to the flagpole, but you're also like hitting these blocks to like impede the other player's progress.
Yeah.
And it actually gets super intense. Um, and I was really surprised. And I played through this game when it hit 3DS on the eShop there, and I had never played it prior to that. And I thought it was a really cool package, but I did not play this multiplayer mode. And yeah, it's super super cool. Um, Another highlight for me was Mario Party 2. They had the like I guess balance on ball mode. I don't know what the mini game is called in Mario Party 2, but the where you're on the balls and you're trying to like build up momentum to knock the other players off, which like is like weirdly like edge of your seat. Like it's kind of intense, especially because it was like towards the end of the championships. Um, and I thought that was like super cool. And then there was another mini game which I don't remember the name of, but that one was also just really really entertaining, and it's like really easy to understand like as a viewer, which I think for the most part they did a really good job picking games that were like easy to understand. And with I'd say with the exception of like the only time I felt kind of lost watching it, where I was like, I'm not really sure who's winning. Here was the Splatoon 2 part. I felt like that was just really hard to follow everything, and with all those players and like knowing who was on whose team and how they were going to progress, like that was cool, but it felt a little hard to follow. But everything else was like, I don't know, I thought they were like really perfect picks that were easy to understand. And then there was brand new Super Mario Odyssey challenge at the end, evoking very strong feelings of the wizard there, where there's a new Mario challenge awaiting the players at the end. Never before seen gameplay, and that was just incredible.
Were you conflicted about watching that? Because I knew it was coming up, or I assumed it was coming up, and I was kind of like, ooh, what am I going to do in this scenario? Am I going to watch it or not watch it? Just because like we're close, and I don't know. In the last Direct, I sort of half watched, half didn't watch the Mario Odyssey footage. Are you at all concerned about seeing too much of the game, or are you just like bring it on?
I'm bringing on.
Okay.
Like,
okay.
Yeah. That's,
Gotcha.
I mean, because like I could watch 50 hours of that game and still be like, I want to play this immediately, because Mario games are, they are like a huge part of it is the aesthetic, the environments, the music, the surprises. That's a huge part. But then I also think with Mario games, like a huge part is actually just how good they feel, and like how instantly they pull you in and like challenge you to do better, and how engaging that is. So yeah, I couldn't watch. I mean, it's the same with like Mario Maker levels and stuff. Like I can watch that all day, but then like I'm still like, oh yeah, I want to try that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm not too worried about it. I know that they're not going to spoil anything that they really don't want us to see. I think Mario Odyssey is just going to be that big of a game that they can show a lot of it and still have a lot of surprises.
Yeah. No, I think you're probably right about that for sure.
So, yeah. Any particular highlights for you?
No, it's just well, Bailey from WWE competing. Although
yeah, she didn't do very well.
Well, okay, but she was there and that was cool.
Yeah.
So I thought that was fun. But also I just I think you kind of made this point earlier too, but I feel like the whole thing prioritizes like fun and entertainment over like a super intense or stressful like competitive environment. I mean, like, it was competitive, but it just seems like it's creating a really fun product for people to watch, like almost as, definitely probably more important than the competitive aspect of it, unless you're one of the people who's up there on the stage. But it's maybe different from some esports in that regard. I mean, it's not, it's more of a promotional event than an esport, but it does a good job of walking that line between presenting a competitive feel and being a competition, but also really just being about like being a fun celebration of Nintendo stuff, and really, really fun and entertaining for people to watch. So I think they kind of hit that balance pretty perfectly for me. So that's what I really enjoy about it. I would love for them to put together like a super cut of this too. It'd be nice to be able to watch like a 30-minute version or an hour-long version, like in I could see them doing that for sure. So and maybe someday they're going to service us with a like a Blu-ray, like a nice Blu-ray like set of a couple of Nintendo World Championships. I don't know how much. There's probably not very much good footage of the original Nintendo World Championships, but that would be super cool too.
So, that would be amazing. Yeah.
I don't know how big the market would be for a product like that, or if it'd be worth producing. But can you imagine with like a documentary about the original Nintendo World Championships, and then like high quality copies of the last couple events they've run? That'd be super cool.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm still someone who wants like a beautiful hardcover version of Iwata Asks interviews, and I want Blu-rays of like every Nintendo Direct and stuff.
Yeah.
So like I am totally the market for this stuff.
And I mean that is really something. I doubt they'll do it, but that is something they could totally do, is like put out a Blu-ray of 5 years worth of Nintendo Directs, you know, and like it would cost so little for them to make that. And I think that, you know, there's definitely a significant group of the big time Nintendo fans that would totally jump on that. So
yeah, like because you know they've got to have like behind the scenes stuff and like gag reel stuff and.
That'd be awesome.
Oh, man,
hey, real quick aside, because I just thought of this before we jump into other stuff. Have you thought about, we were talking about Mario Odyssey, have you thought about trying to track down one of the Best Buy kiosks to play? Because I think the demo that I played a month or two ago is popping up in a bunch of Best Buys now.
Yeah, I went to Best Buy to play, and they had the kiosk set up, but it was not on.
Oh, man.
So I was like, okay.
So maybe try it again at some point?
Yeah, maybe I'll go this weekend or something. But our Best Buy is doing a midnight opening.
Oh, okay.
For Mario Odyssey. And both Lindsay and I took off that Friday from work.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to go at midnight and get the game. And then that Friday, just play Mario and watch Stranger Things.
Man, I could probably get that Friday off still. I should maybe think about that.
Yeah, I think you really should think about that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess like kind of just before we wrap up on these Nintendo World Championships, like kind of going off what you were saying about how they just created a really positive and fun and entertaining experience with like, you know, it being competitive, but not, you know, not the way video game competitiveness gets sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of that is they chose the right people to be in it. Like, I feel like they chose good people, like good human beings across the board, like wholesome individuals. To be in this. And like, I mean, some of these people, like, they are very competitive and very good at video games, like all of them are. And like but I think it was cool, for one, that they had the younger players like mixed in there with the older players, and like they could hang.
Yeah.
Which was really, really cool, seeing them. And like, it was really heartwarming. And like, Lindsay and I were like always cheering for, we really wanted like some of the, like the younger kids to win. We were huge Abe fans. We were really cheering for him. And then there was one other younger player who was there with like his dad, and they like interviewed him, and it was like so sweet and endearing. And like, I don't know, it was so positive and so cool. And like, it was really nice to see this in like a week of like, this was the same week that like there was all like the Cuphead backlash going on, and like I was seeing on like every video game site where people are arguing about like being good at video games and like all that stuff, which I hate. And like, it was so cool to be like, yeah, these players are like really awesome, and they're also not like total jerks about it. So
was that the kid who was talking about how he wanted to get a job at Nintendo when he was older? Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, like cool. it was so endearing. Like, I love it. And I just love that like they picked the right people. And you know, and like they didn't pick like some like racist YouTuber or anything. Like and like everyone just seemed great and just representative of what like I feel like video games should be. Just fun and awesome. So yeah, so that was really cool. I loved it. I'm looking forward to the next NWC, probably in 2019. I hope, if they keep this schedule up. I would love to see these every 2 years.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. So moving on, here's our spoopy content alert. There is a Splatfest happening in Splatoon 2 this weekend, and it is vampires versus werewolves. So it started last night on Friday the 13th. Neither of us, unfortunately, played last night, but we're definitely going to play today. And I've already gone in. I went in last week and got my shirt and played some matches to rep Team Vampire. Where do you fall on this debate, John?
Yeah, it's a tough one. This is not one of those Splatfest matchups where it's like one is the clear winner for me, because werewolves are radical. I love werewolves, but I think vampires have like a slight edge over werewolves. So if I think of it in terms of like Dracula versus the Wolfman, like I don't know. I love both those movies, but probably I like Dracula better. So. Yeah, I think I have to go with
You're talking about like the Universal monsters.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Lon Chaney, Bela Lugosi, all that stuff.
Yeah, I would probably go with Dracula there as well. Yeah. And then like
although I think of Wolfen Man is one of the better like hard rock or metal songs about horror stuff, and that's about a werewolf. So
Wolfen Man, who's that by?
Of Wolf and Man by Metallica.
Oh, okay.
On the Black Album.
Yeah, okay. I thought you said Wolfen Man.
Of Wolfen Man, yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Okay, so let's get into some more discussion questions. All right, so we both kind of fell on the side of Dracula for the Universal horror movies. Where do you fall on Edward Cullen versus Jacob Black?
Well, I was always Team Edward in a very big way. I feel like it'd be difficult for either of us, like, growing up loving like the Smiths and the Cure and looking at our shoes a lot and stuff, to be like team muscular, handsome guy. You know what I mean? Like, definitely more into skinny, dorky Edward Cullen myself. I'm Team Edward.
Okay, same. Yeah. And this next question is one I honestly, I kind of assumed I knew your answer for the first one. This one, I really don't know where you're going to fall, and I think you are probably going to have some serious conflict here. But for movies, The Lost Boys or Teen Wolf?
Man, this is tough. I think I would give a very slight edge to Teen Wolf. I've watched that movie more times. I have a very soft spot for Michael J. Fox, probably one of my favorite actors ever. I love him. And nobody does backflips in a basketball outfit on top of a van, listening to surf rock in The Lost Boys. So I don't know. Then again, Timmy Capella's not playing saxophone,
just glistening
in Teen Wolf. So
yeah,
it is tough. But yeah, like Teen Wolf is such a fun movie. I don't know. I love them both, but
yeah,
I've seen Teen Wolf more because I think it holds a slightly more special place in my heart. So.
Yeah, I love Teen Wolf. I think it's like legit hilarious. It still holds up. It's so fun. But I think the Lost Boys is, I would have to give the edge to the Lost Boys, just because I think it's such like it's just such like a perfect movie. I think it looks so cool throughout. Like, I just love the way that movie looks. And the performances are amazing, and yeah, it's so good. I just finally bought it on Blu-ray this year.
Yeah, we did too, but we haven't watched it yet. So
yeah, I haven't watched it either. I hope the transfer is good. But like, I've owned it on VHS, I've owned it on DVD, and it was like $5 on Blu-ray, and I was like, well, I need to own this on Blu-ray now.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of Blu-rays, Teen Wolf was just re-released this season on Blu-ray. I haven't gotten it yet, but because I do have that movie on Blu-ray. But actually, Teen Wolf and Teen Wolf 2 were re-released.
Hard pass on 2.
I've never seen 2, but you know what? ditto my thoughts on Michael J. Fox with Jason Bateman. Like, it's hard for me not to enjoy anything Jason Bateman's involved in. So I feel like I probably would like Teen Wolf 2, and I've never watched it.
Yeah,
but
it's not great.
Okay, that's the point is this.
It's probably better than Lost Boys 2, though.
I can't imagine a scenario in which it's not. Teen Wolf and Teen Wolf 2 both re-released like with like anniversary editions or whatever this year, and at least Teen Wolf 1 comes with a full-length documentary about the making of Teen Wolf, which exactly, my eyebrows raised just like that as well when I saw that news. So I really want to pick that up soon, maybe before the season is over. We'll see.
Yeah. Wow. I would like to grab that as well.
No Lost Boys or Teen Wolf video games though, which is a bummer. That should have happened in the 80s.
It's
especially
never
Teen
too
Wolf.
late. Yeah, it's never too late.
Just somebody make the 8-bit level with Scott, doing backflips as the wolf on top of the van. I would be so into that.
Yeah, get on it. Way Forward. Make that for Switch.
Totally.
Cool. Okay. Last discussion squad here. Or whoops. Discussion question here. I think I just gave it away. But I guess we could call this the discussion squad. I like that. All right. So this is specifically related to Monster Squad. And characters in Monster Squad, which I think are probably the definitive version of these horror movie characters. So who's better in Monster Squad, Count Dracula or Wolfman with Nards?
I'm gonna go Dracula. It's funny, I had nothing to do with these show notes, but we watched Monster Squad on Wednesday night here at our household, so it's fresh on my mind. I know you were joking when you said these Dracula and Wolfman performances are the definitive ones, but I actually think Dracula is really cool in Monster Squad. Like, it's a great version of Dracula. It straddles that like debonair, like handsome, well-dressed dude with like evil, powerful villain thing like really well. And I gotta go Dracula. I mean, Wolfman is kind of cool and is definitely cool in this one, but it's more about the gags with him than anything else.
Yeah,
so
he's kind of goofy looking.
Yeah. But I mean, he explodes and then slides back together, which is pretty cool. It does have that conflicted, like, it very much emphasizes the conflict between the man and the wolf, you know what I mean? So it's pretty sweet, but I gotta go Count Dracula.
Yeah, I'm Dracula as well, which I guess makes me 4 for 4 in the vampire camp. So yeah, obviously I am team vampire in this Splatfest. Yeah,
and if we threw in Draculina versus like a wolf and man, you'd still be Dracula. You know what I mean? So.
Oh yeah. If we threw in the boss fight against Dracula in Castlevania Rondo of Blood versus the Wolfman, still Dracula.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I think it's just going to go that way forever.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, cool.
Last thing real quick. The Monster Squad ends with Van Helsing being sucked into a portal while giving a thumbs up to the kids on the way out of town. It is so good. It's the best. It's like so good.
That's another video game that needs to happen.
I mean, that one would be perfect. It'd be so good.
Like have it have like get together the team that made Goonies 2 for NES and make it like a total Metroidvania.
Yeah,
would be amazing. Like,
it's one of those properties where even if the game completely sucked, it would still be fun. Like, it would be worth playing, like, even if it was terrible. So
I know that, man. We should, if either of us ever get rich, we need to just
fund, like,
we need to just make a video game development studio and hire people to make like 8-bit horror games.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, that would be awesome. Like, I think the Monster Squad is popular enough now too. Like, people love that movie. It would sell. It would totally sell if they made a Monster Squad video game.
Yeah.
The problem is it would most likely show up on your cell phone only.
No, we make them for Switch.
Yeah, if we make them, sure.
Yeah.
But like I just downloaded the Stranger Things game on my phone.
Yeah.
I haven't played it, but because I'm like working up the desire to play a game like that on my phone. But it looks cool. It just exists on my phone, which is like not usually a fun way to play a game. So we'll see.
Yeah. One more thing kind of on this topic. The Mummy Demastered is coming to Switch in a couple weeks, and that game looks totally sweet. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I've seen like 30 seconds of footage or whatever. But yeah.
That I think that could be really cool. Like I have no interest in that movie, and I hate that what Universal's doing with their horror
if they're
franchises.
I feel like ranked badly enough that it's all.
You know what? I totally forgot when this came out. Like people were like, "Oh, they're relaunching their like horror cinematic universe with Mummy Returns," but they totally did a Dracula movie before this that no one watched. That was like the official relaunch, but everyone forgot about it. So I think in like 3 years they're going to do like a Frankenstein movie, and people will be like, "Wow, they're relaunching this," and everyone will have forgotten about The Mummy Returns.
Well, I feel like this might be our least about Nintendo podcast we've ever done. Although, who knows? We could probably go back in the archives and find some very distracted episodes. But I think the Dracula movie was done before they had their version of like their Kevin Feige or whatever, who's like overseeing everything and like show running the universe, cinematic universe there. So. I don't know if that was part of it. I think The Mummy was the launch of their new cinematic universe, but I have a feeling, I haven't really read about it lately, but I have a feeling it may be a cinematic universe consisting of one movie, considering how badly that tanked. So we'll see.
Good. Like, do it right. Like, I'm totally into this idea, but not like that.
Yeah. They should be like, I don't know. I think if you're doing Universal monster movies, they should be like PG-13 and really like, I don't think they should be gory or like like, I think they should be, viewable by kids or at least older kids, and just, Monster Squad, the tone of Monster Squad, well, it's a little goofy. Maybe it shouldn't be quite that goofy, but anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
And if they did make them marketable or viewable by kids, then that'd be great to do like tie-in video games. Like there's not enough. Okay, I'm going to go off on a tangent just for like 30 seconds. There's not enough cool like horror media for kids that's like appropriate for kids. Because I feel like growing up in the 80s with like Monster Squad, Castlevania, stuff like that, there was like a lot of stuff for like even like the Gargoyles TV show or there was like lots of stuff that was horror-y, Goosebumps like books. I mean, those are still around, obviously, but like, Are You Afraid of the Dark? There was a lot of stuff like that where, I loved like horror stuff when I was a kid, but I wasn't watching like, I mean, by the time I was 11 or 12, I wasn't watching like Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street. I was watching stuff that was like more appropriate for kids, and video games could be a big part of that. And I think there's a lack of that kind of media right now. And that's what I think would be really cool for like Universal movies, would be to try to fill that gap. And then I think that would, fit really well with like a video game push as well,
Yeah. Yeah. Cause that was like, I mean, in the 80s, like there were so many, like, there's so many like 8-bit and 16-bit like horror games that are like PG-13 and like even just like horror themed, like, one cart I've been trying to track down for the NES lately, but I haven't been able to find it at a decent price, is Monster Party. Did you ever play that game?
No, I don't know if I know that one.
It's awesome. It's so weird and like really goofy, and I love it a ton. But it's gotten weirdly like it's a little above like the price I'm comfortable paying for it. So yeah, but that's one I wanna track down. But anyways,
now horror video games are all like super R-rated and stuff, and they're like tons of swearing and all about the gory violence and everything. And it would.
Oh, they're all about jump scares for YouTubers. to react to. Is
Yeah,
basically seems how they're designed these days. But that's neither here nor there. And yeah, let's actually get back to talking about Nintendo stuff here. Specifically the SNES, which actually has two well, we'll get to that. But before we get to the SNES Classic, I got the Playing with Superpower book. If you remember, there was with the NES Classic, there was a Playing with Power book that there was a hardcover and softcover version, and it was essentially pretty much recycled content from Nintendo Power, and like maps and strategy guides and stuff like that, and which was cool. And I enjoyed that book mostly, but it was kind of it felt kind of a little bit light, and I mean, after like kind of skimming through it and like using the maps a little bit for Metroid, like I didn't really do anything with it. But I got the hardcover deluxe version of the Playing with Superpower book, and like it is really, really great. Did you pick this up, John?
I haven't gotten this one. I have the NES Classic version, but I don't have this one yet.
Okay, I would really, really recommend it. It's actually a pretty great read.
Sounds like a pretty significant improvement over the first one, huh?
Yeah. So there's a foreword by Reggie to start the book off, which is really cool, and it still does include some Nintendo Power content, but it's more like you kind of specifically know what it is, and it's more interesting stuff from there. It's not just like all the pages about the game from Nintendo Power. They kind of pick and choose, but it's mostly original content, and it's less of like a strategy guide or like brief overview of each game, and it's more of just like a chronicle of the first party games from Nintendo that appear on the SNES Classic. It is focused on the first party stuff, but it looks at each. It looks like pretty in depth at the game, and there's usually a little bit of talk about like the development and stuff. Like there was stuff in there, like I read like the Donkey Kong Country article. There were like little factoids that like I actually didn't know, which is weird because I feel like that's one of the most like chronicled SNES games of that era. Like I feel like that's a game we know a ton about the development of, but there were like a few little things in there that I was like, oh, I didn't know that. Like when then President Yamauchi first saw the game, he thought it was running on the Nintendo 64 and was like, wow, this is going to be a really good Nintendo 64 game that will sell a lot. And then like they told him, no, this is running on the Super Nintendo. And he was like, we need to change all of our plans. This needs to be the big game we market at CES, and we need to change our booth, and everything is just going to be Donkey Kong Country after like seeing it. And I was like, I didn't know that. But there's also like it kind of goes into each series as a whole, like the games that came before and after the SNES version. So like there's it's really interesting that this is like an official Nintendo book, like obviously endorsed by Nintendo. It's got a foreword by Reggie, and there's the Earthbound, the Mother article, and there's like a half page about Mother 3, and they're like, yep, fans in North America have been clamoring for a localization of Mother 3, but that's a story for another time. And I'm like, that's really weird that that's in like an official like Nintendo product that's being sold. But I mean, you can kind of take that as you read into that how you like. But there's also like something I really like about this book as well is they instead of just like regurgitating content that like we already kind of know or like is just on a really basic level, they reached out to the community a lot. So you have like huge sections of like, like here's Super Metroid and here's like Samus cosplayers. And then for every game they talk to speedrunners for basic strategies for just like playing the game from these like really great players. And then there's like, here's some like really high level crazy speedrunner strategies for these games, which I feel is super appropriate because for me, the first time I even like heard the term speedrunning was in regards to Super Metroid and like sequence breaking and all of that. So like, and I know that like a ton of these games are like speedrunner favorites on the SNES. So that's kind of where I associate a lot of, like between like Super Metroid and I guess like Mario 64 and stuff. Like I feel like it's kind of like the origins of speedrunning in the capacity that I know and enjoy it. So I feel like it's super appropriate to have that stuff in here, and it's pretty interesting. So overall, like it is a really, really nice package and a really, really great book that I think everyone should definitely add to their collection if you're a Nintendo fan.
Yeah, that's cool. With the SNES Classic launching, my kind of financial efforts, I guess we'll say, were dedicated more towards like hopefully getting one of those things. So I was kind of thinking like, I just want to focus on making sure I get one of these. You know what I mean? So but now that I have one, I could definitely keep an eye out for that book, or I guess spend the dash. You know what I mean? Spend the money to pick that up at this point, since I've already gotten the classic.
Yeah, I definitely think it's worth it. Because it's actually like I haven't even finished reading it yet. And I've been like kind of picking away at it for a couple weeks now. So there is a lot of content there.
Actually, on the SNES Classic front too, our friend Rich texted us yesterday and pointed out that I think he uses Brickseeker, one of those apps, but there were like 20 some SNES Classics at both the Targets in town yesterday, and it seemed like that was the case all over the place. So I think it seems like Nintendo is making good on their promise to put out a lot more SNES Classics than NES Classics. Because you definitely weren't seeing a week or two later like a nice healthy restock like that of NES Classics.
Yeah, on Thursday, my friend Finchkins sent me a text that he found an SNES Classic at Target on Thursday. So good.
Back out. And Switches are all over the place now too. I see Switches in store now too. So it's good if people want those consoles and those games, they can get them now.
Yeah, so hopefully they can keep up supply through the holidays.
Yeah.
For sure. So yeah, let's get into the SNES Classic. Like you've had yours for like a few days more than I've had mine.
Yeah.
And so you've obviously been playing it a bit.
Yeah, I've been playing it a bit. It's been a pretty busy couple weeks, so I haven't been able to play it a ton, but I have pulled it out and played it a few times for sure. I've mostly been playing Yoshi's Island. I played a little Star Fox, just so I could unlock Star Fox 2, although I haven't actually gone in and played Star Fox 2. And then, I played through like a bit of Super Metroid. I think that's what I started with. I was like, let's really like put this thing through its paces, or not even that, but just like, let's see what it can do with like the best Super Nintendo game sort of thing, or one of them. So So yeah, I played some Super Metroid, played some Super Mario World, a little bit of Star Fox, a little bit of Super Mario Kart, stuff like that. But you know, the only thing I've like really hunkered down and played a little more of is Yoshi's Island, because I've never played that game, and that's what I'm really excited for. So you know, but just like general impressions of the system itself, obviously very similar to the NES Classic. Like the menu and interface and stuff is really similar to the NES Classic. We both have well, you have a Japanese and a European SNES Classic, right? But I have the European one. We got our pre-orders in way back when, so the controller, you know, is cool because it's a little different than the North American one. All concave buttons. Is that how you say it?
Convex
buttons. Yeah, convex, not concave. So I feel like that's it shouldn't be that big of a deal, but it's like a little bit of a thing to get used to, having them all that way, because I feel like my fingers slide around on them a little bit. But and then there's that port in the front that you pull down, and I feel like that's like just asking to be broken at some point here. So we'll see. Held on with a rubbery little arm, so hopefully that'll hold out. But yeah, it's great. I mean, you know, having an NES Classic, you know, it's very, like I said, very similar to that experience, but you know, with some really cool Super Nintendo games. I love the fact that it comes with a second controller. I haven't used the rewind feature at all, actually. I accidentally used it once, but I haven't used it on purpose at all. So but that's something that's in there that's cool too, and a little different from the NES. But yeah, unfortunately, I haven't been able to play a ton. But I've had a lot of fun so far.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, something I thought is interesting about the European version is they're all the North American box arts for the games. They're all the North American boxes. I was expecting to boot it up and see all the PAL versions of the boxes, but they're the North American covers.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that would have made sense to put the PAL covers on or in those systems, but I know the games themselves are exactly the same as the North American versions. So
yeah,
possible that you know, maybe like, I don't know how it all works on the software side of it, but if the box arts are attached to the actual ROMs in some way, then maybe they just like, or like the ROM file. Well, I don't know.
I don't think that's the case.
No, they're probably just in a folder somewhere, I guess.
Yeah. But they are the like, well, I mean, I guess the big difference, well, the two big differences is, one, a lot of these games never came out in Europe because Nintendo kind of bungled the Super Nintendo there, the SNES, and that's why like Sega established such a huge foothold in Europe during that era, because they weren't releasing the games there, you know, especially like the RPGs and stuff. I think the first Final Fantasy game to come to Europe was Final Fantasy VII, which is just insane. Like, they skipped all of the Nintendo Final Fantasies. And you know, and they also had the 50 megahertz version, so the games didn't quite like play and run as well as the North American counterparts.
Yeah, which is why we're getting the North American, or they're getting the North American versions in the,
yeah, which is good, but like, man, I like that had to have been a lesson learned for Nintendo, because like Sega just like dominated over there during the 16-bit era, and then they maintained like a super strong presence, you know, through the Dreamcast. So yeah, as far as, man, like the problem with the SNES Mini, like my biggest problem with it is too good. like there are too many good games there that I sit down and I'm like, oh, I don't know what to play. Like, I just want to play all of the games at once, basically, because these are like all my favorite video games ever made in one place, basically. So like, and like just like scrolling through and seeing each of like every box art just like stirs up like the strongest feelings in me. And so I've been jumping around so much. Like I was really committed to, like, before getting the system, I'm like, I'm gonna replay Yoshi's Island because I haven't played that in forever, on like an actual SNES, and I'm gonna play through Star Fox 2, and I just keep getting distracted and playing like just everything, and I want to play everything, and I want to play all of the RPGs at once, and um yeah, but I have used the rewind feature a little bit, because I played some Super Ghouls and Ghosts. So I think it's cool to have the option for rewind, and obviously you still have like the save states. It's a little bit as with the NES Classic or the Famicom Classic Mini. It's a little cumbersome to have to to like reach over and like do that on the console. I really wish that, they're giving us two controllers for the Super Famicom or Super Nintendo Classic, and I know that Nintendo cares like so deeply about like replicating experiences exactly, and like they want the controllers to be exactly the same and perfect, and I totally appreciate that, but I really wish that like on one of the two controllers maybe they could have put like an extra at the top, next to like the L and R buttons, like just an extra small button that would access that menu.
Or even they could have just put like a button combination into the firmware or something, where like if you held like start and select for 2 seconds, like, or whatever, something like that.
Yeah. Yep. Totally. Yeah, that would be perfect. So because it is just kind of like cumbersome, and I don't know, like, and I don't feel like outside of like Contra 3 and Super Ghouls and Ghosts, and I guess stuff like F-Zero, like I don't feel like most of these games really need save states or rewind, because I think like these are some pretty expertly, perfectly designed games with like a perfect level of difficulty. But yeah, for those games that do, like, it would be nice if it was a little less cumbersome. But
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess on the Super Famicom Mini side of things, there's a few different games. There's Super Street Fighter 2 instead of Street Fighter 2 Turbo. There's a Goemon game. There's Fire Emblem. There's Super Soccer or Championship Soccer, and Panel de Pon. And I think of like the Super Famicom exclusive games, I think Panel de Pon is probably the highlight for me. I recorded a video of it, short video of playing it on the Super Famicom Classic Mini, that's up on our Nintendo Fun Club podcast YouTube channel. So if you want to like actually see the game in action, you can check that out. And I also go through the menu, and like the Super Famicom Mini has the Super Famicom box covers. They did not use the North American ones, of course. So yeah, that's something if you want to check out. But I've been having a lot of fun revisiting Panel de Pon, aka it was released here as Yoshi's Island, and or Yoshi's Tetris Attack. Not Yoshi's Attack, yeah. It was a Yoshi's Island themed Panel de Pon game called Tetris Attack, which I do feel like that is a sort of, I feel like the SNES Classic Mini has a perfect game library, but it is missing a puzzle game, like a good 2-player puzzle game. and I think Panel de Pon is a great fit for that. It's a bummer they couldn't get Tetris Attack on there, but that's probably like a licensing nightmare at this point. But yeah, one last thing on like the actual play experience. It's very, very weird. And I'm like kind of surprised by myself when it comes to this, but I have fallen in love with the CRT filter on this thing. I adore it. And I usually am like, give me the pure pixels. Like, I don't want scan lines. I don't want, things stretched out. Like, I want like just pure pixels on my TV. But I think that the CRT filter is probably the best one I've ever experienced on like a retro collection here. And it really like, I don't know, it really does a good job of kind of like not like blurring the edges, but giving them like that kind of tube TV feel, and it makes everything just look a little like I don't know, just the way it kind of should to me. So yeah, I have it turned on both of my systems, and I'm totally CRT filter.
Wow. I'll have to check that out. Like, obviously I kind of feel the same way as you were describing your normal feelings. Like, I'd usually just play it, pixel perfect mode or whatever approximation of that there is. It's what I would usually use. So I haven't even tried that. I did try a couple of the borders just for like a minute or two, but that's not something that really appeals to me. Although I think that there is one that's like very subtle and like, I can't remember what it is. I don't know. I can't remember if it's the curtains one. There's one that's like almost like, it almost just adds sort of like a colored accents on either side that are very like, they're not super noticeable, I guess. Cause for me, for the most part, those borders are going to just distract me from the image, you know what I mean, of the game. Like, you want a black border, and then you can be focused on what's going on in the actual game instead of having your eye pulled to, the wood grain on the side of it or whatever. But I mean, those things are cool if you like them. You know what I mean? I think they for the most part, they look pretty nice. Like the galaxy or universe, whatever you want to call it, like the Starfield kind of thing is cool. They all look, pretty decent. But there's one I thought like, oh, that one I could actually see myself using because it's very subtle and would not distract too much. But yeah, I'll have to try the CRT filter and see what I think about that too.
Yeah, like I definitely I noticed like I think it honestly kind of makes all the games look better. They're obviously not as sharp and don't pop quite as much. But I think like the overall experience is very, very equivalent to like what it was playing the games originally. And like I was noticing, I was playing Final Fantasy 3, and I was playing with no filter on at first, and I was like, this looks kind of off, and then I turned on like the filter, and I'm like, the monsters and like the enemies, like it's like, yeah, this is how I remember these sprites looking. And I feel like it's a huge improvement in stuff like Donkey Kong Country. It makes that game look a lot better, and I actually think it makes Yoshi's Island look better as well. But your mileage may vary. But
there's definitely the argument to be made that the designers and of these games were planning on players seeing them through something more similar to that. You know what I mean, like through a CRT. So perhaps we're designing for that, and didn't necessarily mean for us to play the games pixel perfect or completely clean without the filter of the of a 4:3 television. So yeah, I'll have to check that out. It's an interesting dilemma is not the right word, but issue to consider is like, how do they look best? Do they look best the way do they look best when they're more similar? They look more similar to how they did on a TV, 20 years ago, or do they look best in their just pure, pixel form? So yeah, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah. It's a cool option to have regardless.
Sure.
Cool. All right. Other games. We've been playing another retro one that I played for the first time, is the Arcade Classics Archive Mario Brothers. My friend, Finchy, who I mentioned earlier, came over last Saturday and we played through Metal Slug X on the Switch, which is awesome. And love Metal Slug always. And then we also played a bunch of this Arcade Archives Mario Brothers, and it's if you've played any of the Neo Geo games, you kind of know what to expect in like the options and presentation, everything. And it's like it's arcade perfect. It is awesome. There's like high score modes with online rankings if you're into that. But yeah, we played a few games of it, 2 players, and it's a lot of fun. I don't think I would really enjoy playing it single player, but with 2 players, it's pretty intense and not totally chaotic, just kind of chaotic enough. And yeah, it was super fun. So I definitely enjoyed that experience. What's something you've been playing?
Well, like I said, I've been playing Yoshi's Island, and I've only played through the first world though. So I think there's 6 worlds, if that's correct. So like I'm, pretty early still, but I've never played it before, so it's been interesting.
Yeah, what have you been thinking?
Yeah, it's weird because there's like so much hype about that game, or hype's not the right word, but it's a game that people love so much, and every year that goes by that I haven't played it, it becomes weirder and weirder. You know what I mean? With like expectations of like, what's this game going to be like when I finally play it? So. So it's been interesting. I don't know, because it feels less like a Mario game than I think I thought it would. For whatever reason, it's called Super Mario Brother, or Super Mario World 2. So it's like, how much will it feel like a Mario game? And Yoshi definitely feels like Yoshi from Super Mario World. But I don't know, with the egg throwing mechanic and stuff, it's just really feels pretty different from Super Mario World to me, which is not a bad thing. It's just not necessarily what I expected. So, but it's been good. Like there's I have to resist my temptation as a Mario player, especially 2D Mario games from the last like 10 or 15 years. I'm very much a completionist, or I have been, and I'm definitely resisting that temptation with Yoshi's Island, because between the red coins and like the flowers you collect and all that stuff, I feel like I could spend forever playing these levels trying to get every collectible. So I've been avoiding that.
Yeah, it is.
But
yeah,
and I feel like the game would be really hard if I tried to get all that stuff. It's I've only played the first world, and it wasn't like super hard or anything. But there's a few parts where I was like, oh, this is kind of tough, and they mostly centered around me trying to get like one of those collectibles, and it being sort of difficult to do without dying. So, so yeah, but I mean, it's, the game looks really cool, obviously, beautiful and unique look for it. And, the levels have all been really good, but, I'm curious to see, like, as the experience continues, where I will fall in terms of how I feel about it as a Mario game, and how similar I think it is to, Super Mario World, or just like the Mario experience in general. I've heard people call it the best platformer ever, or the best Mario game, or whatever. And right now, after playing the first world, that's hard for me to imagine feeling that way. I think it seems it's really cool. It's very fun, and it's awesome to be able to play a Mario or sort of Mario game from the 90s that I'd never played before. But right now, I wouldn't say I'm enjoying it as much as like Super Mario World, or Mario 3 or something like that. So, but I'm looking forward to getting the complete experience and seeing where I come down on it after that.
Yeah, I would approach it more as a spin-off.
That's what it feels like,
Yeah, you know, the game doesn't have the Mario World 2 subtitle in Japan. That was like just a North American marketing thing, which probably helped the game sell. But at the same time, probably doesn't do it any favors as far as like expectations go. Not saying it's like a better or worse game than Super Mario World, but it's not a sequel to that game. Like it's like it really isn't. But yeah, I think the game just it does a really good job of just like, you know, it's a different like mechanic, different surprise in every level. And it kind of keeps that going. The boss fights are amazing in it, and super clever.
Okay, so that's interesting that you say that, because like I've had a mid-world boss and then an end of the world boss so far. Like I've only played the first world, but I thought both of them were very boring. Like it was like just
Really?
throw eggs at the it just throw eggs at it. Throw eggs at it and it'll shrink and get bigger and then get smaller and then get bigger and get smaller, and you just keep throwing eggs at it. It was like the same thing. So I felt like there was like nothing to those boss fights personally. But
yeah,
like I said, I'm only in world 1, so I don't know.
Yeah. I think they're interesting and they look cool. I don't know if they're not the most challenging part of the game. But I don't know. There are some more interesting mechanics with the bosses later on.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say I'll look forward to seeing some different boss fights or what they do with it going forward. Because like you know, I've said it a million times, only the first world. So, but so far it's been just stand in one corner of the room and throw eggs, and you know, like as many eggs as you can throw them, and then the boss will die. So, you know, other Mario bosses, or well, I guess it's not a Mario game, so I shouldn't say that, but other like 2D, you know, side-scrolling bosses, it's like you have to figure out like, I don't know, ways to avoid their projectiles, and sometimes you got to like slide under them or jump over them and all this stuff. And like in this game so far, I've just stood in a corner and thrown X. So I would say the bosses for me have, well, the few I've encountered have been a weak point of the game rather than a strength at this point.
They get more interesting.
Okay,
but they're also like partially it's just the visual spectacle. I think is a huge part of it. But again, like it's. Expectations are a heck of a thing.
The FX stuff has been cool so far. Like I did the touch fuzzy get dizzy level, and made sure to touch a fuzzy, as I say, and that was cool. So that's that level is one of the reasons I was like, well, I can't play that. I don't want to play the Game Boy version, the GBA version, because I know they couldn't pull that off there. So
no, that stuff's great. As far as for me, like where this game ranks in like the 2D Mario pantheon is, I don't even like ranking it there because it doesn't count. It's a spin-off. I think it's the best Yoshi game.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. I like it more than Donkey Kong Country already, so I'll say that, you know. Not to say like I hate Donkey Kong Country, but I don't like love it. So, and I know there was like a little bit of maybe friendly competition within Nintendo with those two games. So I would put myself firmly in the Yoshi's Island camp at this point. But
yeah, I need to, you know, I've been coming back like in the past, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. I've been coming back around on like the SNES Donkey Kong Country games, because I was pro at the time, and I love those games. And then I think I kind of like talked myself into not liking them through like most of the 2000s, and then like going back, and once they hit Virtual Console again on the Wii U, like I was revisiting them, and I'm like, actually these games are like pretty good, pretty well designed. They don't the visuals are hit or miss, but I've kind of been coming back around. So I need to simultaneously or sequentially replay Donkey Kong Country 1 and Yoshi's Island, and see kind of where I fall on that. But I think both are very good.
Yeah,
is where I'm at now. Cool. I guess something else that I would not compare to Super Mario World is, but has Mario in the title, is Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga Remake, which is a game I feel like everyone in the world collectively has forgotten exists. Um, like this game was released to way less fanfare than I expected. Considering like I know Superstar Saga is like I thought was a pretty um, you know, game in the Mario RPG series. I know people have like people love that game, but I feel like no one I know actually bought this or is playing it. But I did grab it. Um, and it I guess maybe because it is a 3DS game and maybe like a lot of Nintendo fans are for one like overwhelmed with Switch releases right now, which is totally fair. Um but also like kind of coming out at the same time as the SNES Classic Mini. Like I know a lot of people are like revisiting games on that. So maybe it was just like bad timing, but like I was listening to, I don't know if you heard this, the Nintendo Voice Chat podcast and like from IGN, and like they said that IGN isn't isn't even reviewing the game
Yeah,
because
because
like user interest is so low.
yeah,
And then like it debuted in Japan at like number 1 for sales, but it was like a really low debut for a Mario RPG. Um, and I wonder if that's just a, uh, has to do with the platform and like the fact that Nintendo fans are being serviced in a lot of other ways right now, and there's just a lot to play if you own Nintendo systems or enjoy Nintendo games. I think like even 3DS owners, if you're just a 3DS owner, I feel like a lot of people are still playing Samus Returns.
I am. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know, but like this game, it just doesn't seem to be getting much love, even though it's like gotten pretty good reviews. I've heard the biggest complaint seems to be the Bowser's Minions like add-on content. Seems to be like not a hugely great addition. But I think like I'm like maybe 4 hours into the Superstar Saga side of it, the remake, and I think it's awesome. Like I think this is a really, really good remake. Like I think it looks really good. It sounds great. The animation is incredible. Like it's just gorgeous, like 2D, like classic, just like high level 2D animation, and it like the characters are so animated and there's so many like visual gags in this game, and so many emotions and reactions from the characters, Luigi especially, that are like they just look awesome uh, in the game. And I actually think like they use the touch screen in a really smart way on the overworld, to switch between like your traversal powers and stuff, that makes that stuff go like really quickly. Um, and yeah, I mean overall, like I still think it's a really well written game. It plays super well. It's like balanced really well. The environments are interesting and varied. And like the pacing's good. Like it's I don't know, it's a super, super good game. I feel like maybe it was a mistake to release it at $40, even with this add-on content, considering like the add-on content does not seem to be the highlight of the package. Maybe this could have done better as like a smaller release, a $20 download or something, or maybe it would have done even better as a $20 download on the Switch?
I think it would have done really well on the Switch. They're in a difficult position because they need to and want to continue supporting the 3DS for people who've recently bought one. They're still selling 2DS XLs and stuff, so they need to support it. They need to put software out there. But at the same time, I feel like a lot of people, are really in love with the Switch, and there's a ton of games to play on the Switch. So they have to put stuff out for 3DS, but at the same time, like, I think a lot of the audience is uninterested in 3DS right now, but you have to service those people who haven't gotten a Switch yet, are still on board for 3DS, maybe have recently picked up a 3DS. And, I'm sure the game would sell. Like, I would be more motivated to potentially buy it at $20 as a download, but then I don't know if it really fulfills its purpose as being like another game on the shelf for people who recently bought the system in that case. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's going to be less noticed and less, like if a parent just bought their kid a new 2DS and they go to Target and they see this game, then they see a new game. But if it's just on eShop, they don't. So it's, like I said, it's just a difficult position to be in, I think. I know, what's the name? Is it Chicken Little or Chicken Run or whatever? The Jules Watcham.
Oh yeah, Chicken Wiggle.
Chicken Wiggle. There we go.
Yeah.
Chicken Wiggle. I've heard really good things about that game, but apparently I don't think that anybody's buying that either. And it's a victim of being on the 3DS, I think. So tough position. They have to release games for it, but I think they also have to understand that a big chunk of the audience is not really there for 3DS anymore. And I bet they understand that and probably kind of expected, this kind of result to a certain extent, but understand it's a reality that they have to keep supporting it, at least for a little while. But for those who think like the 3DS is going to continue on for 2 or 3 more years or something, I think this kind of thing is indicative of why it's probably not. You know what I mean? Like next year at some point, I think we're going to see the last Nintendo 3DS release.
Yeah, I think like when this was being developed, Nintendo, I think the Switch has surpassed Nintendo's expectation. They might have like considered, it's going to take a few years to get the Switch ball rolling, but that ball's rolling hard.
Mm-hmm.
The Switch ball is rolling hard, and I think, I think maybe they had planned on more 3DS for a while, but I think you're right. I think next year we'll probably see the last Nintendo published 3DS retail game, at least. And then I think we'll probably get like Atlas games on 3DS for like 5 more years. But I also feel like another recent example. Well, it's weird though, because I feel like Metroid has done really well. Like Samus Returns, I feel like has probably sold really well. It'll be interesting to see where that falls, like when NPDs come out and stuff. But I think it will be interesting games to watch coming up is to see how the Mario Party game does on 3DS, the top 100 or whatever, to see how that does, because that kind of feels like one that maybe could have gone to Switch and would have been a nice addition there. But I've also noticed that Pokemon Gold and Silver, the 3DS versions of those, they don't seem to be getting quite as much hype, at least within like my friend group and stuff, as when Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow were released on the 3DS eShop. Like I felt like everyone was playing those games, and I know that like Pokemon Gold and Silver are like way more beloved on more beloved games. Like they're like better games, objectively better games than Red, Blue, and Yellow. But I also don't feel like anyone is really like I got silver. I put a few out, and I love Pokemon game. It doesn't seem like anyone's really digging into those, and so it will be super interesting next month when Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon come out to see how those games sell. And I wonder if with how the surprising success of the Switch, I wonder if Nintendo is regretting not Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, or maybe fast tracking one or anything, because I have a feeling that, I don't know, it'll be interesting, but I have a feeling that those games might underperform.
I can't imagine they won't. I mean, like, I don't think they're going to be bombs or anything, but just think of where we were as Nintendo fans in our options last November versus where we are now, with Switch. So, like, I was, excited for Sun and Moon last year. I bought, Moon. I played it a fair amount, but, like, I can't see myself getting Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon now. I mean, I'm going to be playing Mario Odyssey, and I have a Switch that I want to play. So I just can't imagine. But I think it's okay though. I don't know. Maybe this is like heresy for, big business talk or whatever, but like I feel like there's a certain expectation that you have to have peaks and valleys in terms of sales, and like every year can't be the moment that, like, for every franchise or whatever. So I'm sure they know, like, with Moon and Sun being like a different, like having a different look and being a different, like I don't know, like a little bit of a step forward for Pokemon games and that kind of thing. Like I'm sure they expected that to be one of the bigger, releases. I don't know how Pokemon games usually sell when it's like the next iteration. Like, what was it, like Pokemon X and Y, and then what was the one after that? Like, or maybe I'm getting this wrong, but like a lot of times, like 1 year they'll have like the 2 games, and then the next year they'll have like the third version of it or whatever.
After accumulated Sapphire, Mega Rubies of the GB Sun and Moon. So, and now Ultra Sun and Moon.
But I guess they kind of have like the big year, and then kind of the, not off year, but like the revision year or whatever.
Yeah,
and
sort of.
I don't know if they, like, I would imagine they expect the more original year to be the bigger seller, compared to the revision year and stuff. And I don't know. With Switch, like, there's,
Sun and Moon also came out like post Pokemon Go, like pretty immediately after Pokemon Go, where like the franchise got a huge boost.
Yeah. But and there's just a thing where it's like, I don't want to say, like, if you hold off on Pokemon on Switch, then in a year or two, when they maybe are looking for a big Switch game, then it can be a big Switch game, because like there hasn't been one yet, But if it came out this year, the same year that had Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey in it, then it's like another huge game in this year. And I think they, it's probably a good thing to have Pokemon for the 3DS this year. It's not going to sell as well as last year's, but it is going to be there for like that market that's really looking forward to it. I know there's still a lot of kids who, like, Owen doesn't care that it's not on the Switch. In fact, it's better for him that it's not, because he actually has a DS. He doesn't have a Switch. You know what I mean? So there's a market that's going to be looking for it on the 3DS. And then by the time they do put it out for Switch, I think it's going to be a big deal, because, people have waited for it a little bit. So
yeah.
I have one more.
Shall see.
Yeah. I have one more game I've been playing. I don't need much time to talk about it. It's Picross S on the Switch. It's awesome. I have become a Picross convert in the last couple of years, all because of one of the only good things my Nintendo has ever done, which is putting out that Zelda Picross game for 3DS, which I had a lot of fun with. And since then, I've been really into the standard Picross thing. Like, I tried Picross 3D, and that, I don't think I'm smart enough for that one. It gets too confusing for me, but the regular old 2D standard Picross, I'm all about. And this one is, like I said, that first one I played was the Zelda one, and the Zelda flair, the Zelda, styling and aesthetic and stuff. was cool. This one is just very minimalist, very simple. There's no, IP attached to it at all in any way. So it doesn't have any like kind of Nintendo hooks in that regard. But man, it's just really fun in terms of very straightforward Picross gameplay. And it's a great thing to have on Switch because, it could be like watching TV, watching wrestling or whatever, and play that. And, it's easy to pick up and play for 2 or 3 or 10 minutes at a time, and I'm loving it. So as a Picross person, a Picross fan, a recent Picross convert, it's awesome to have one on Switch early on, and definitely scratches a different itch than most of the other games on the system. So
yeah, cool. I still need to get that. I would like to at some point.
Yeah, the other thing I would say about it though is like Tetris DS was so incredible. The DS Tetris game from Nintendo, because of all the like 8-bit like Nintendo stuff going on in there, and they can't do that with Tetris now, obviously, because they don't have the Tetris license, where they'd have to get it, I guess. But with Picross, they could do that, and it would be, that would be unbelievable. I feel like it's not quite the same thing, but to dress it up in like a best of Nintendo classic look and sound thing would be really cool.
That would be great. Like Mario Picross on the Game Boy, which I believe was the first Picross game we had localized here in the West.
Yeah.
That would be cool. Awesome. Well, I guess that kind of wraps up this episode. If you want to contact us or check out our videos and podcasts and stuff, go to NintendoFunClubPodcast.com. Links to everything are there. As for myself, you can find me on Twitter at Brawn-Dwarf, BrawnDwarf. And what about you, John?
I'm on Twitter at Arcade Ghost.
Cool. Well, thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you next time. Goodbye.
Later.